going to add a few more things to the plan before bringing furniture in. One thing we're going to do is we're going to start placing a sill anywhere we have a door that opens to the exterior. So before I do this, I'm going to go to the layer manager and I'm going to turn off the grid layer. I may turn it on for future steps that we're going to do in this video. But so what this does is it exposes these locations. So I have an exterior space here and an interior space here. And what I'm going to do is add a sill. So we don't have a layer for this right now. We have a window sill, but I'm going to add one that's called and we'll do it in all caps, a door sill. And I'll change the color to color number 8 so it prints nice and light. Okay, that should be this color right here, 8. And anywhere where I have this interior to exterior condition, oops, I got to make sure I'm on the correct layer. I'm not right now. A door sill. We'll change this to a door sill. Okay, so that would be this door right here. This is a courtyard. These two are courtyards. And it basically is going to be a small drop between the level of the floor on the interior side and the level of the floor on the exterior. So you want to just go around and add these anywhere where you have doors that open outside. Okay, that's the first step. Then the next step is, right now, we can't really decipher what is an interior space from an exterior space. So we're going to add something called a hatch pattern to the ground plane in those exterior spaces. So I'm going to need to create a layer for this, and I'm going to call this layer a floor hatch. And I'm going to keep it the same color, color number 8. Again, the reason I'm doing that is because we really want this line to be very light. Okay. Now, before I add the hatch patterns, I'm going to go back to the grid and turn it back on. Okay, so basically the hatch pattern is going to fill these exterior spaces with a smaller grid than what we see right there. So in order to start the hatch command, I'll use the hatch command. Before I do that, I want to explain how we're going to do this. You know, they basically, tiles come in certain common sizes, but we want to make this work with our grid, which is 3 feet 8 inches or 44 inches. So instead of using a common size, we're going to use the module of this grid. So I think probably a 22 by 22 inch grid. So there'll be an extra set of lines that comes through here. Okay, so I'm going to change my layer to a floor hatch, and I am going to, let's see, the best way to do this would be to find a place temporarily that doesn't have any, it won't have any hatch patterns. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a circle here. Actually, you could make this circle anywhere on the plan, and it doesn't matter how big it is because we're going to erase it. All right, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn off that hatch pattern. I realize this is a little complicated what I'm suggesting here. This center of the circle is at a grid intersection, and we're going to use that as the origin point for the hatch. So let's close this. Layer properties. I'm going to type in H for hatch, and you should see a whole set of options up here at the ribbon. This is going to be a user-defined hatch pattern. Okay, so we will, let's see here, we're going to make it 22 inches. And we also want to establish it as a double. So oops, go back to hatch. User defined these settings stayed. Click on double, because we want it to be both horizontal and vertical lines. And for set origin, we're going to pick the center of our reference circle. Okay, now you can see it's starting to kind of populate these areas. Now, what's happening here is I'm hovering over this area and it's filling in the area of the door because I didn't finish my sill line as I needed to. So I'll come back and fix that later. This one looks fine. So I'm going to go ahead and click. All right, now let's fix this so it's ready. I'll just drag it over there to that corner. Now, so by setting the origin at the center of the circle, this grid is falling directly on top of the grid that we were using for the floor plan. That's the reason for that, for doing that step. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the hatch command and I'm going to click in all these areas. Okay, and I'll keep going back into the hatch command. Now, at my entry, I think what I want to do is, well, there's another instance where I didn't complete this sill line. I'm going to only put hatch in this part here. So I will fill it this. You can erase the circle now. And when you do a hatch pattern, it needs to have a closed area of, you can't have any openings in it or else it will give you some kind of error report. So here we have these grids and, it's maybe some kind of stone tile or something like that. It's kind of just graphically illustrating the distinction between interior and exterior space. The last thing that I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to create a little overhead lane. Typically, when you have an entry door, it's always good practice to put some kind of covering over the entry door. So I'm going to create a little overhang that's just in this location right here. You should have a layer in your file called A Object Above, right? And when it prints, it's going to be a dashed line. If in your layer manager, you gave it this line type, hidden to, same thing as a dashed line. All right, so where am I going to make this one? I'll just put a little cover right over here. And if I put it on top of that line below, it's not going to show up on my plan well. So I'm going to offset it a couple of inches just so it graphically, and I'll erase the original one, and then I'll fill it these two. So I can have a little overhang. So if it's raining and someone is standing at the door, they have something over their heads. Anytime you see a dashed line in a floor plan, that indicates some kind of overhead condition. A skylight, if you have a peaked roof and you have the ceiling shaped that way, you might have a line at the center of the room indicating the high point. Those are the kinds of things. If you have like a soffit that's dropped, like a lower ceiling in some part of a project, you might also have a dashed line like this. All right, so that takes care of the hatch patterns and the overhead planes. And feel free to add skylights and things like that if you would like.